Beaufort County Jane Doe, identified as Maria Gonzalez. On May 24, 1995, in Yemassee, South Carolina, a transportation department employee was mowing grass along Cotton Hall Road. As he was mowing near a drainage ditch, he came upon a young woman near the intersection of Cotton Hall and Old Sheldon Road. From the best I can tell, State Road S748 is called Cotton Hall Road. The woman found hadn't had her life taken in that spot. Someone transported her there 12 to 24 hours before she was found. She had curly brown hair that had been dyed a reddish color. She was possibly biracial or Hispanic. She had a baby by cesarean section, a full hysterectomy, and a 3-inch scar from thyroid surgery. The underwear found with her was mostly sold in Latin American countries, and this is in part why they believe she might be Latina. It was eventually determined she'd been asphyxiated 12 to 24 hours before, and she was probably 28 to 35 and around 5'4". They knew she'd passed away on her back and was found lying on her face. She was left wearing nothing but her underwear. They would search for decades as to what her name was, but it would take forensic genealogy to get the result, leading to her son in December of 2022. She was identified as Maria Gonzalez of Kissimmee, Florida. She was a 36-year-old mother of 3 when she disappeared. It turns out her family long believed she'd walked away, and because of this, they didn't report her missing. The police have described the assault and death as up close and personal, and they're currently looking for her friend and the boyfriend she had at the time. For nearly 30 years, her children believed that she chose to walk away, and their lives formed around that disappointment. One article later said that the children had only been told part of the story. We do know that right before she disappeared, she had returned home from a visit to Puerto Rico. She was at home with her husband and the kids had gone to school that day. When they came home, she was gone. 2 photos were released to the media. A photo of a male who is described in some articles as a boyfriend, and the other of an identified friend. It's unclear of who the man was to her or anything about her husband at the time. The police are asking the public to come forward if they know who this man is. Unfortunately, the photo itself isn't great. The other photo is of her close female friend. It's believed her name may be Patricia, but they're not positive that this is true. The authorities did do an age progression, and the purpose of these photos are that they need more information in order to figure out who took Maria's life. The police desperately need to interview them in order to discover what her movements were at the time. I've never seen this before, but the family and children are represented by legal counsel and not speaking. If anyone has any information at all on what might have happened to Maria or the location of the 2 people photographed here, please contact the number on your screen. Maria Gonzalez went unidentified for 27 years. The Owenton County Jane Doe, identified as Linda Bennett. On May 6, 1988, a couple was on their way to buy a newspaper, and they were walking along Highway 330, 18 miles south of Owenton, in Owenton County, Kentucky. And it was here that they found a partially clothed woman who was only wearing brown men's socks. They estimated her to be around 25 to 40 with brown hair. She was around 5'5" and 120 pounds. She had an amateur tattoo on her upper right arm that said Steve. Near her was a nylon blouse and a pair of men's Winner's Choice brand tennis shoes in a 5.5, which I can tell you from my own feet that this is about a size 7 in women's. There were broad jeans and a nylon blouse nearby, not on her. The strangest thing was part of her left hand was missing. She'd been asphyxiated, and based on the circumstances, it's believed she was a victim of SA. As they investigated, they began to believe she either had ties to Columbus, Ohio, or Southern Florida. The police worked the case hard, and they utilized the publicity of what happened while making a plea for people to come forward, but nobody ever did. A witness believed they saw her walking along the freeway, not far from a diner that was popular with truckers who passed by. It's possible she ended up there the same way, after hitching a ride with somebody. Unfortunately, this was the only tip, and there's no way to even know if the woman found was the same one seen walking. In 2019, Parabon Nanolabs offered to take on the case, and DNA testing was funded by a grant providing aid to victims. It was lucky they had hair samples taken before she was buried, because like way too many before her that I've covered here, she was placed in an unmarked grave and they lost the location. It makes me wonder how many aren't so lucky and we don't even hear about it, that they just walk away from trying to identify the person. Because after all, you can't test DNA without their DNA. I've also covered on here quite a few where bones disappeared from storage or they were found in storage. One time they were found at a university. I don't know, just people shouldn't be tucked into storage. In this case, it was a stroke of luck that they were able to get usable DNA. And with that, Linda Bennett once again had her name. She's believed to be a victim of Samuel Little, and here is the picture he did of her. I've mentioned Little before. He claims to have taken 93 lives, and, even more horrifying, the police believe that he was being truthful. Unlike many of these perpetrators, he is described as personable by those in the prison system. Not just was he a sociopath, he was considered to be a genius, and he did have a knack for remembering information about how many people he robbed of their lives. As evil and awful as he was, a lot of that information that he gave has led to identifications and knowing who was at fault. Clara Birdlong, for instance, introduced him as a boyfriend to her family. He targeted women who were at risk, living somewhat on the fringe of society, and likely his affable personality led to attracting these women in the first place. Many of these women were suffering from addiction or were estranged from their family. Linda Bennett would have been 70 years old had he allowed her to live. She went unidentified for 32 years and was found just 158 miles away from home. As always, thank you so much for watching. The current goal for the channel is 20,000 subscribers. Please consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss new episodes. Thank you so much to everybody commenting. Even with just an emoji, it really has made a big difference. Without it, there isn't a channel, so thank you guys so much. Take care of yourselves and each other.